Welcome, The Spread, NESN.com's football picks podcast. We're back for what I'm being told is year 5. Year 5.
Year 5, correct.
I'm NESN.com's Mike Cole, joined as always by NESN.com's Ricky Doyle, NESN.com's Andre Khatchaturian. We have gone from the office to the basement in bedrooms. This is nuts. We're here for this is our annual season preview episode, but so we'll run through kind of division picks, conference picks, Super Bowl picks, maybe do a few player props or award props, and then we'll get the hell out of here because, to be honest, we're still trying to make sense of this format and the NFL season in general. I guess we could start there, guys. This is just weird as hell. I don't have anything else to say.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird in general, and it's weird doing the spread in this format.
Yeah.
I already almost spilled my iced coffee, and I've been watching my landlord's bird, and that thing won't shut the hell up. So we're dealing with our own stuff.
Bird for the podcast.
Yeah, I don't know, but
we're already off it.
We've gone from all over the place, and yeah, I agree with you. This season, I mean, are we gonna have a season? Are we gonna finish this thing?
I hope
that should probably be our first bet, right? Will be a 16-game season we played. I mean, what are the odds that they play all 16 games? Like, I would give it, seeing what happened in baseball, seeing what happened in the bubbles, I would say it's like minus 300 every team plays. I think it's more likely than not each team plays a 16-game season.
Well, I mean, outside of just the general logistical nightmare of trying to, like, navigate around the pandemic, I mean, what happens if you get into a situation where, 50% of a team tests positive and you're essentially forced to cancel a game on a Sunday? Like, you can't make that up as easily as
that is the issue, right?
You're not going to go scheduling double headers in week 6. Like, I don't know what the backup plan is if things go off the tracks.
They've almost certainly built in 2 or 3 weeks to completely blow it up for that amount of time, right? So, like, if that happens, Ricky, and I don't know I don't know what the threshold is. If it's one team, if it's 4 teams, but if that happens, then you can probably say, we're putting the entire season on hold for 3 weeks. We'll see you again in 3 weeks, and literally everything gets moved back 3 weeks because it's not like stadium availability is going to be an issue now or in the long term. Like, they have, and that was the thing when they first talked about starting the season, is like they had the ability to basically make the Super Bowl a floating date, and they can move it as far back, I think, as like the end of February, maybe even into March. So I guess maybe that's the plan, is if something weird happens, let's just push everything back 2 weeks and then go from there. But the problem with that is you only get one shot. Like,
yeah, I was going to say.
If it happens again, you either have to bang out games or you bang the entire season.
Well, this is why we just got to stay positive and COVID negative. And
there you go.
And, yeah, I think the weird part for our intents and purposes going into this season is just, we really have nothing to evaluate, look at preseason games or anything like that. It's just we've had an off season, and I think it's a big thing going into this season is you're going to look at a lot of these teams with new coaches. I mean, there's 5 teams in the NFL with new coaches this year, and then a bunch of other teams with new quarterbacks. And I think those teams are going to really struggle early on just because they've really had no game situations. And I think that could really impact in a 16-game schedule who wins a division or who makes the playoffs.
Yeah, and also
I feel like we were sitting here on several occasions last year, especially when it comes to like the Thursday night games, talking about how sloppy the overall quality of play was. That's going to be magnified even further. Yeah. I mean, you might be, especially early in the season, that could be. I mean, we could be in for some bad football for a while.
It might even be easier though to make picks though, because you're just gonna. I'm going to look at teams that have established veterans who've been with a certain team for a long time, or an established coach that's been with the team for a long time, and pick them over a team that might have a new quarterback in the system or a new coach in the system. Especially the first 4 weeks, it might make things a little bit easier if you just simplify it and not complicate things with crazy stats.
I would be fascinated to know what the feeling in these buildings is, though. Like, for me, I've talked about this with maybe you guys or definitely other people, but, like, it doesn't feel like football season yet. And I think part of that is a lack of preseason. I think part of that also is the fact that there's the NBA and NHL playoffs going on right now. And also the fact that we're just in a weird time in America, like, and in this entire world, where it's the pandemic, there's the protests, the riots, the social, all everything that's going on. It just is weird that it's like, oh, football season's starting, and I wonder how that is playing inside these buildings, and I wonder if maybe some teams will kind of look a little lethargic to start. And yeah, to Andre's point, you mix that with new personnel, and it's just good luck figuring this out. Plus, when we get, I mean, we'll talk about this week to week, but like week one, Tampa goes to New Orleans in an empty Superdome. Like, what? What is that even? Yeah. Who knows what that's going to be like? So there's going to be the first few weeks, I think, are going to be pretty touch and go, as they typically are, but even more so this year than usual. But let's get into what we're here to do, which is make some picks and kind of break down the NFL ahead of the 2020 season. As typical with our season previews in the past, we'll just kind of run through all the divisions, give our picks, maybe see if we can find a little value here and there with some dark horses in each division, kind of just handicap things. So we'll start in the AFC East, and God, man, as interesting as the AFC East has been in 20 years, because Tom Brady is gone, and that is a weird thing, and that kind of changes everything. But in his place, obviously, is Cam Newton. And for the first time in pretty much forever, the Patriots are not runaway favorites to win the division. I mean, it's basically them and the Bills are in a tight race, whether it's even money plus 110, 120, 130 for either of those teams. Depending on where you're looking, it looks like the Bills are actually the favorite to win the division. Let's start with Ricky. Who do you got in the AFC East?
So it's funny that, Andre, you mentioned just the fact that, how important the continuity of things are going to be. Having the coach and the quarterback that have been there for, however long, those teams probably have a leg up. It's kind of ironic that, now's the time when the Patriots are in that transition period.
Back of the line now.
And it's really the Bills that have the most continuity in that division. I actually really like the Bills. I think that I think they're head and shoulders above everybody else in that division right now, to be honest with you. Just from an anecdotal standpoint, just the overall culture that's been built under Sean McDermott, that defense, you want to talk about continuity, bringing back that secondary, just, talent at all three levels. Josh Allen obviously being the wild card when it comes to that offense, but I think they've surrounded him with more talent. So I don't know. I think, a lot's going to get made of the Tom Brady departure, obviously, rightfully so, but it's just a lot of turnover on that Patriots defense that I'm not sure they're going to be able to keep their streak going this year. And if that's the case, I think Buffalo swoops in there and wins the division.
Yeah, I think Buffalo is not only a division favorite, but I think they're a legitimate AFC champion favorite. Josh Allen's a year older. He's getting better. They've surrounded him with some unbelievable talent. They got Stephon Diggs and John Brown. So he has some weapons to throw to. And their schedule the first 4 weeks, they can really start a good chance of starting off 4-0 with the games against the Jets, Dolphins, Rams, and Raiders to kick off the season. And in those 4 weeks, we talked about early on in the season, a team with a new quarterback, the Patriots, struggling to find its rhythm, that they can really separate themselves from the Patriots early on. As for the Jets, I wouldn't sleep on them either. They started the season 1-7 last year, finished 6-2. And Sam Darnold in those last 8 games, 13 touchdowns, 4 picks. Looks like they got some confidence going into that second half of the season. They had a weird beginning to the season last year. Sam Darnold had mono. As for the Patriots, Ricky, I completely agree with you. It might be time for them, and especially early on in the season, they could really fall behind real quickly, especially with the Bills having such an easy schedule.
Real quick on the Jets, does it not feel like Adam Gase has been there for like 5 or 6 years now? And
same thing with Darnold, too. It feels like both of them have been there forever.
Yeah. That's
talk though. Oh, but that is the thing with the Jets is you're one, like, and so this is the thing. Instability is going to be, I think, even more volatile than ever before this season. And so, like, I don't trust Adam Gase if one guy gets sick or something, or if one thing goes sideways. Like, I don't see him righting the ship. Which is, going against what happened last year, where they did rally nicely down the stretch. So credit to them, and they have some talent too. So that's the division's wide open. The Dolphins too could contend. I mean, probably not, but they played well down the stretch last year, and maybe who knows? Tua steps in at some point and goes not wild. Like, the games are going to be as competitive as they've ever been in this division in a long time. One quick thing before I make my point. I'm looking at it right now. It looks like the Bills, most places, about 12-1 to win the conference. So that is an interesting point by Andre. I'm going to take the Patriots here. If you're going to give me plus money and Bill Belichick to win the AFC East, I'll take it anyway. I understand that they are not as good offensively this year, obviously. And they're one injury away, especially the wide receiving core, from being a complete joke on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm putting a lot of stock in that, admittedly. The defense, I still think, is pretty close to elite. But, there are some issues there, and there are some changes that are going to affect them. But the secondary is so good. They're going to be very tough to throw against. Again, I'm getting Belichick at plus money, so I like that, or at least close to even money. And the thing with Cam Newton, I think Cam Newton is going to be the starter for the Patriots. I don't think you're going to get 2015 MVP Cam Newton, but I also don't think you're going to get the Cam Newton of the last few years, especially if he stays healthy. So if you get something in between,
be able to stay healthy.
Yeah, sure. And I'm putting stock in him being able to stay healthy. If you get something in between that, I still think that's good enough, because I think you're going to start. McDaniels gets a new lease on life, and maybe they can do some different things. They are going to be fascinating to watch. I mean, the Patriots are always fascinating to watch, but especially this year, kind of seeing how different they look and how they acclimate themselves. I think they're as well suited as any team in the league to kind of handle this foreign land that is playing in empty stadiums in the COVID world. So it's kind of chalky, but I'm going with Old Faithful one more year at least. So. Let's go to the AFC North, where the Baltimore Ravens are by far the favorite to win that division. Andre, who do you like in the North?
Not only are they the favorites to win the division, have you seen their schedule? They have the easiest schedule in football this year.
Wow.
Last year's winning percentages, which I don't know how that happened, because they won the division last year. But I guess games against the Browns and Bengals will help that cause. Marshall Yanda retired, but I think they still have a pretty strong offensive line. Lamar Jackson, he's still going to be great. Hopefully he stays healthy. His scrambling quarterback style, he can get hurt anytime, but I think they're still the team to beat in that division. I wouldn't sleep on the Steelers either. They had an unbelievable defense last year. Allowed the third fewest yards per play. Their offense was terrible, though. Big Ben was obviously injured last year. If he could stay healthy throughout the whole season, they, I think, absolutely are a playoff team if he's healthy, and maybe even the division. It's a good value pick. I would say
great value. Yep.
AFC North. But I'm picking the Ravens to win that division. Yeah,
the Steelers are anywhere from 3 to 4 to 1 to win the division. So I think there is good value there, especially if Roethlisberger is healthy, which is a huge question mark, because the guy's old, he's fat, and he's coming off of Tommy John or whatever, so that's not great. Maybe he comes back throwing 100 like guys in baseball. I don't know.
I think I'd almost rather him be dealing with a shoulder injury than some sort of recurring knee issue coming into this year or something.
Ricky, who do you like?
I think ultimately I'm going to side with the Ravens as well, but I honestly wouldn't touch this division.
The Browns could be good too,
unless you're going with the Steelers, who we just mentioned. Great value there. And I also don't think the Browns are a terrible value,
right? Just
in terms of being kind of that post-hype sleeper mode. Maybe the change in head coach sort of gets them to reach their optimum potential. They shored up their offensive line by bringing in Jack Conklin. So, there's some things you can hang your hat on there if you're looking at Cleveland as a potential buy low candidate. But yeah, again, I think the Ravens win it, but I wouldn't back them from a betting standpoint. I think the value lies in the Steelers more so than any of the other teams because of the reasons you mentioned. Roethlisberger's return, that defense, which was among the best in the NFL last year, and also just the inherent injury risk that comes with Lamar Jackson's style of play. I mean, these are AFC North football. We know that these are physical games. He exposes himself to a lot of contact. So he goes down, that completely changes the complexion of that division, and maybe you sneak in with whatever money you sprinkle at the Steelers or Browns.
My only thing with the Browns is that the new coach factor. Again, no preseason games. I think that's going to be one of those examples where the Browns probably get off to a slow start this year.
It's weird though because
but anything's better than what they had.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to
coaching standpoint last year.
Yeah, I was going to say that might be the only place where the head coaching thing is not only not an issue, but it's an advantage. Like they got rid of the circus clown. Like that's right. Which I love Freddie Kitchens. He seems like a cool dude, but Jesus Christ, they were a mess last year. The more I look at this, I want to take the Browns because I think the biggest thing is they addressed their issue, right? And that's the offensive line. Ricky, you mentioned getting Conklin, but they also took Jedrick Wills in the first round. So they've upgraded the line. I think they're pretty good in the trenches, which is what matters. I don't know if I trust Baker Mayfield, but he seems confident heading into this year. Oh, I also don't know if I trust Odell Beckham. That thing it's still pretty combustible. So who knows? Yeah. I'll take the Ravens. It's easy money. It's safe money. Not easy money. It's safe money, I guess. It's again chalkish, but they went out and I like what they did on the defense too. The defense was good last year, and they went out and they got Calais Campbell. I think they signed Derek Wolfe as well, right? And drafted Patrick Queen, who is one of my favorite players in the draft, coming out of LSU. LSU gets a lot of talk about their offense last year, but Queen was a great linebacker. I think he kind of beefs up the middle of that defense, which is where they needed the help. So their run defense was pretty bad last year, right? If I recall correctly. So. Lamar maybe comes out and dislocates his knee week 1 and then it's just a mess, but I'll take it for now. I don't know if the book's out on him yet or what, but
again, I'm kind of talking myself into the Browns pick.
Ricky, you're right though. It is but no, because it's a stay away division. Because you could make a case for 3 out of the 4 teams, and if Joe Burrow somehow is the greatest thing since sliced bread, maybe it's a 4-team race in the North. I don't know. I'm not touching Cincy though.
I think in Cleveland, Case Keenum's the guy by the end of the year.
Yeah, there you go.
I think sliced bread's overrated. I don't know why everyone always says.
That's
yours unsliced.
Yeah, that's lazy.
No, I mean bread.
That's on me. I shouldn't be using dumb cliches like that. 50 years of spread, you got to be better than that. So that's on me.
Hey, if anybody's qualified to talk about, bread and the like, it's us.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yes, very true.
AFC South, Andre, who you got?
This is another tough division, but I like the Colts. Just a lot of teams that can win this division. Obviously, you have the Titans, what they did last year. Ryan Tannehill had the highest yards per attempt last year among all quarterbacks. 1 full yard better than number 2, Matt Stafford. I don't think he can sustain that. I don't think Derrick Henry can sustain what he did towards the end of the last season. He had 400 touches last year. That's going to wear on him. The Texans made some boneheaded trades. They got rid of DeAndre Hopkins. They're also 9-3 in one-possession games last year, the Texans, right? I think that reverts back to the mean. I go with the Colts. They got a veteran quarterback who has an amazing offensive line. You give Phillip Rivers time to throw. He has good weapons. And they lost 6 games by 1 possession last year. Obviously, they had that whole Andrew Luck situation going into last season. Now they got a good quarterback again, so their offense is going to get better. Their defense has a lot of big names on it. They got DeForest Buckner as well. Give me the Colts.
Yeah, this one's pretty wide open. The Colts, looking at it, some places plus 120 in that neighborhood. Titans plus 160, 150. Texans 3.5 to 1, and obviously the Jaguars are going to suck. Ricky, who do you like?
I like the Colts as well. I feel like the Colts are the only team that, when you look at it on paper, improved this offseason. I mean, you mentioned the trades that the Texans made. Feels like they depleted their roster a little bit. Obviously, Jacksonville, sort of, you can write them off. They're in rebuild mode. And then the Titans are more or less, they were just shoring up, re-signing their own guys and making sure that they're equipped to go on another run here. But I think I like what the Colts did to augment their roster. I love their offensive line. I love their coach. I think their defense is capable of more than they showed last year. Really talented at all 3 levels. Darius Leonard anchoring things in the middle. You mentioned the Buckner trade. Xavier Rhodes coming in. So You couple that with the infusion of talent on offense via the draft. I think Marlon Mack and Jonathan Taylor are going to be a pretty good two-headed tandem in that backfield. So yeah, I like the Colts here, and then we'll get into our playoff picks a little later. But I think a second team might come out of this division as well.
Yeah, I wanted to pick the Titans just because I felt like I was taking all of the favorites, which is a terrible way to bet, obviously. So I'm also taking the Colts. It's just as long as Phillip Rivers doesn't suck. Like, maybe he comes out and still sucks again, and it's like, oh, this was not a Chargers thing, it's just a Phil Rivers thing. He's got to protect the football a little bit better. Like, they have to make him a game manager, and they'll be fine. Because you're right, Ricky, the backfield is awesome with Mack and Jonathan Taylor. I think Taylor already, like, I think the offensive coordinator had some great quote during the draft season saying, like, it's the last thing I want to do on earth is try to tackle Jonathan Taylor. But they also went out and they drafted Michael Pittman. So you look at that wide receiving core, like if T.Y. Hilton stays healthy, they got Hilton, Paris Campbell, who again had injury issues as well last year. Pittman, you got Jack Doyle. Like, there's some weapons here. Like, they've already taken care of the tough part, right? Like, the offensive line is very good. They upgraded the defensive line as well. So, like, there's a lot of this is like kind of part of the natural progression for the Colts, right? Is that they had a very good foundation, whether it was the offensive line or their defense, and now they can kind of augment that by using draft picks on a guy like Taylor or Pittman. So I like what they're doing. I think they're heading in the right direction. They're going to be a tough team to play this year. So I like the Colts.
Stinks for Phillip Rivers. You know, for once you thought he was going to have a home crowd to finally cheer for him. Yeah. He played all those years in the Chargers, and now he has to play in an empty arena, empty stadium. So Phillip Rivers is really good at playing at stadium.
That's a fair point.
So,
that's a good point, Mike, though, but it feels like this team is built from inside out. You know what I mean? They have, they have that good core along the offense and defensive lines, and then they're using those weapons to supplement those pieces. It isn't, teams. A lot of times people fall in love with these teams that go out and bring in these flashy weapons, and then inevitably they end up going 8-8, 9-7. I don't think that's going to be the case with them, because while they bring in these weapons via the draft, they already had such a good, strong foundation in place along the offensive and defense.
They just have to hit on them. Like, I mean, it's possible that they're all busts, but they've done a very good job of drafting and developing, so I have no reason to believe that won't happen again this year. Let's just speed through the AFC West, because I got to imagine we're going to have some consensus here. Ricky, who do you got in the AFC West?
So we're all taking the Raiders, correct?
Yeah.
I think the talent gap between the Chiefs and everybody else in that division is Grand Canyon-esque.
The Chiefs, by the way, are like minus 400, 450, 500. Like, it is. There's no value in taking the Chiefs. That's how much better they are than everybody else.
But the thing is, like, I would even consider putting money even with those odds, because especially when you can, like, I think about how heavy favorites the Patriots were for all those years. I mean, I feel like they were up around like minus 800, 750 going into the season. So if you juxtapose this with that, it's not the worst value, I guess. And I really do not see any way that anybody contends with the Chiefs this year.
Yeah.
Talent, continuity, everything.
The Chargers lost their franchise quarterback, and again, maybe the way he played last year, it's an upgrade when it's all said and done. They're the second favorite in this division at like 8-1. It's a gulf. So that just tells you too that there's
I don't know if you've been watching Hard Knocks, but Justin Herbert's having a tough time getting the ball from his center in those Hard Knocks. It's I guess he's been a shotgun quarterback throughout his college career, so the exchange between the center to his hands has been.
Is he gonna play? Does he start? I
don't know if maybe they have Tyrod Taylor.
Tyrod Taylor, I feel like, is they could be okay if Tyrod Taylor is Buffalo Tyrod Taylor. But anyway, go ahead, Andre.
Again, the Raiders, they have a lot of issues. If there's a value pick other than the Chiefs, like let's say Patrick Mahomes goes down or something like that, I would go with the Broncos. I really like how they finished last year. They won 4 of their last 5. Their only loss was against the Chiefs. Drew Lock, 7 touchdowns, 3 picks in those 5 games. They added Melvin Gordon, Jerry Jeudy, AJ Bouye, Jernell Casey. They still have Von Miller, Bradley Chubb. They have a really good team. I think that's a playoff team in Denver.
They have
my one thing with Denver,
array of weapons.
My one thing with them is that it almost feels like when their offense gets to a point where they're ready to take that next step, their defense is going to be on the decline. Like, I feel like their defense is aging a little bit, so I'm just not sure if that timetable is going to end up working out.
And also, how good do we think Drew Lock is? He looked good. He looked good last year, but I don't know.
I mean, you have a pretty good roster out there. If he's average, I think that's a playoff.
Sure, he gets to throw to Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy.
That's pretty awesome. Man, now they got Melvin Gordon in the backfield too. Do they still have Phillip Lindsay? I mean, that's a great third down back if they do.
Revenge year for Melvin Gordon too in the AFC West.
Oh yeah.
It almost feels like those teams are trying to build up this huge collection of weapons in the expectation that they're going to get into this shootout with the Chiefs. I don't know if that's the way to beat them.
Oh, no.
I don't think you want to turn those games into a trap meet. So
it's a good point, right? Yeah, it feels like
everything. Weird philosophical way to go about things.
Feels like everything those teams did this off season was to add offensive firepower. So I am also taking the Chiefs. I have nothing really else to add. I think they got better somehow, which is nuts. I drafted what's-his-face out of LSU.
Oh, Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Helaire, yeah. That, with Damian Williams sitting out is a pretty big...
I still think Damian Williams should have won Super Bowl MVP.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, Broncos, if I was... gun to my head to make a pick in this division for value, I would take the Broncos, but just picking it straight out, it's the Chiefs by a mile. So, even if Mahomes got hurt, I'd still probably take it.
Yeah, they were head and shoulders above the rest last season, and that was before that they hit. They were the best version of themselves. I mean, there was a while there where you were questioning whether they were a legitimate threat coming because of all their issues.
Yeah, they got punked by the Titans. They lost at home to the Packers. Granted, that was with Matt Moore. They still put up a good effort. It was a weird year for them, and they ended up winning a Super Bowl. So, you guys want to do wild cards now, or do you want to go to the NFC?
Ooh.
Just give me 2 wild card picks real quick.
Well, this year...
You got 3 now.
Oh, yeah, excuse me. Sorry, jeez. Old habits die hard. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they do. I will go with I picked the Ravens to win the AFC North. I'll go with the Steelers as a wild card team. I think they're a very good team with a strong defense. Big Ben coming back. AFC East, I had the Bills winning. I'll have the Patriots as a wild card team. And I'm going with the Broncos as my 7th seed. And my bye week seed, I'm going to go with Baltimore. I think they have the easiest division, easier schedule, and they'll take advantage of that.
I'm going to agree with you and take the Steelers and Patriots as 2 wild card teams. The Patriots one gives me fits a little bit because I don't like that roster right now, and maybe this. And I wasn't particularly sold on them last year either, and they still won 12 games or whatever. But I guess just kind of by default, I'll give them one of those wild card spots. I mentioned the Steelers. I like their defense. And I'll take the Texans. I know that they've made some boneheaded personnel decisions here this offseason, but ultimately going to try to separate Bill O'Brien, the GM, from Bill O'Brien, the coach. They have one of the best quarterbacks in football, which kind of increases your margin for error, I guess, a little bit. So maybe they if the Titans do regress, maybe the Texans are able to ride Watson to get in, sneak in the back door with the final wild card berth.
I will add Buffalo, for obvious reasons. And I'll go Pittsburgh and Cleveland. I think that AFC North is going to be a true dogfight. Tennessee obviously is in contention there too, but I just wonder if I like the point that Andre made about Derrick Henry and the workload. And Ryan Tannehill felt a little unsustainable last year, so we'll see.
The Titans were a classic case. I love them in an underdog capacity.
Yeah,
it's second they start becoming a favorite, you lose me a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, let's go to the NFC. Starting the NFC East. Ricky, who do you like here?
I like the Cowboys. I think that they're hands down the most talented team in that division. I think they underachieved really last season. Their record was not indicative of how good they should have been from an analytics standpoint. I mean, you looked across the board, really, like every time you pulled up whatever analytic you wanted to, it seemed like the Cowboys offensively and defensively were up near the top. I think just from an overall talent standpoint, like I said, that they're head and shoulders above everybody else. I think the head coaching change, bringing in Mike McCarthy, certainly will change the culture there a little bit. New offensive coordinator. So, I think the Cowboys are better than everybody else by a pretty wide margin too.
Wow, wide margin. I think the Cowboys. Well, what happened to the Eagles? Like, you just forget about the Eagles? They're the only team in that division that has a returning head coach. And I think that's a huge thing, given that during a pandemic year. I would have agreed with you if this was a regular year. But I do like the Cowboys. I think they're a playoff team. They were 1-6 in games decided by one possession last season, so that's going to revert to the mean. And also, you mentioned their analytics, their yards per play differential they were second in the NFL last year. But on the defensive side of the ball, they had the fewest interceptions. I don't think that's going to change. They really didn't do much to address their defense. Meanwhile, the Eagles went and got Nickel Roby-Coleman and Darius Slay. Again, I mentioned they have the only returning head coach. And Carson Wentz, his receivers are healthy again. I think that's a huge thing. They were already third in red zone offense without those healthy receivers. Now they get them back. I really like Philadelphia this year.
I've said a lot of bad things about Mike McCarthy in my life, but I do think he's a very good NFL head coach, especially in the short term. I think the problem in Green Bay was that time kind of passed him by, and I think he got stale. I think I've bought into everything I read about him, where he spent like the 2 years or whatever it was, a year and a half, in a bunker, basically building out how he was going to change things. And so I'm buying into Mike McCarthy, at least in the short term. So I'll take the Cowboys. I think that was like one of the big issues, right? Is they needed a competent head coach. And I wonder too, if we're going to look back in 3 years from now and be like, they should have fired Jason Garrett a lot earlier than they did, because I think that was really holding them back. And the issues that they had under Jason Garrett, I think will be fixed by Mike McCarthy. Again, I think there's maybe a lower ceiling there, like that McCarthy maybe not might. He is what he is, but I just think the floor is going to be higher. And the fact that he's coming into a very talented team, this team is as talented as any team he had in Green Bay, probably. Offensively, sure, yeah. Like I said,
don't tell the defense short either. I mean, at the second level, that their linebacking trio is probably
and so like what they got
across the league.
Yeah, they got McCoy and Poe up front. I like what they did in the draft. They had a great draft. I mean, getting CeeDee Lamb where they did in the first round, but defensively they got Diggs, the corner from Alabama.
Cowboys released Gerald McCoy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, my bad. That's on me. But also the kid out of Oklahoma, Gallimore, I think is his name.
They drafted him in the second round?
Third round, I think. Yeah, because they took Diggs in the second round. So, I don't know.
I like their draft pick too, Stephon Diggs' brother.
I just said, Trevon Diggs, a kid out of Alabama. So, I think the defense may not be as big of an issue in the short term either. Like, I think they're going to score a ton of points. So,
that 0-5 in one possession games last year, I think it was. That's Andre might have mentioned
1-6.
1-6.
Yeah.
See, that to me, that's head coaching. That's a big part of that.
Sure.
So I think even just that one change, not even factoring in the talent that they've added to this team, I think will that pays dividends in
it's head coaching. Also, you could say that's the kicking as well. They had some kicking issues last year. They went and signed Greg Zuerlein this year, so.
How is the head coach responsible for the kicker?
Oh no, I'm not.
This one-score game. I thought you were correlating kicking to head coaching. I was like,
no, I'm saying
stay on them.
No, I'm sorry. Maybe I didn't make myself.
No, I got you. I understand what you're saying now. Mason Crosby owes all of his career success to Mike McCarthy.
Brett Maher was the kicker for the Cowboys last year, 20 of 30. Then they get Greg Zuerlein.
That's not good. Yeah.
Wow.
So they fixed all the real fixable stuff, right? Like coaching, kicking. That alone should be worth a couple wins. So Let's go to the NFC North. Andre, who do you like here? Wide open division.
I don't think it's as wide open as people think it is. I think the Packers take a major step back this year. I like the Vikings a lot. Again, if Dalvin Cook stays healthy and plays the way that the Vikings expect him to play, they can do what they did last year and dominate. They were 10-1. The Vikings are 10-1. Then Dalvin Cook runs for more than 85 yards in the game during his career. And they're also They were 7-0 last season when Kirk Cousins threw 30 times or less in the game. You get Dalvin Cook involved. They also have a viable backup in Alexander Madison. This team runs the ball the way they did last year, which I don't see any reason why they shouldn't. They will. Sorry, I don't know what the hell just happened to me. They will win the division, and
that's the first stroke on the air.
Yeah, first stroke of the year. No, again, also Packers last year. Speaking of one possession games, they were 9-1 in one possession games last year. I think that's going to regress to the mean. Aaron Rodgers needs to smile more. He stinks as a human being. I like the Vikings.
I tend to agree with Mike. I think this is a pretty wide open division. I mean, at the end of the day, I also like the Vikings. I think defensively the thing with the Vikings is they sort of annoy me is because I feel like for 3 years running I've put a lot of stock into the Vikings and they never quite meet my expectations.
They won the division last year.
I know, but
not last year, 2 years ago.
Oh, last year.
I'm always
expecting Packers when Vikings to the playoff game. Okay, fair enough.
But
sorry.
So I mean, I guess my question for them is, how the young inexperienced cornerbacks fare. I mean, there is some defensive turnover there. I think ultimately they still have the talent to win that division. So I think they do win it. But I am anxious to see who sort of poses the biggest challenge to them because I think the Packers, as you mentioned, up in the air a little bit. And I could definitely make a case for either the Bears or the Lions making the playoffs as well. I think that if you're sold on one of those teams outside of the Vikings and maybe the Packers, because I think their odds are kind of around the same. If you like the Bears or the Lions, why not go for it? I mean, I think there's some value in choosing those teams because, like you said, Mike, I think this is pretty wide open.
I like the Lions more than the Bears. I do like Detroit's offense. They have some very good pieces.
Bears are like 4-1, Lions 5 or 6-1. So, as you guys can see over my left ear is a Green Bay Packers logo. I feel like I should be upfront about that as always. That I am a Packers fan, but I am going to take the Packers to win the division. I get a little value there where they, a few cents better than Minnesota. But I agree with Andre. No, seems very, very unlikely that they go 13-3 this year after their success in one-score games and plus playing a first-place schedule this year. Some struggles on the road last year, especially going to California, which was weird. But, life's different this year, I guess. I don't know. Second year in Matt LaFleur's offense, I think maybe you start to see a little bit of progression. Long term, I don't love what they did with their draft. Taking A.J. Dillon as high as they did seems a little reckless. But good luck trying to tackle that guy when it's 18 degrees.
Those calves.
He looked so. All right, yep. Let's be honest. I am kind of falling for him already, just judged by pictures I've seen of him wearing shorts at training camp. Like, the dude has, I'm not a skinny guy. His legs feel like they're bigger than my waist. It's insane.
Shorts and shells, man. He pops.
Yeah, that's true. He does. And maybe my issue with him is going to be, what does he have left? Boston College ran him into the ground during college. But
yeah, he's on the Derrick Henry plan.
Yeah, playing in at Syracuse, running the ball 50 times. What the hell? So hopefully he's okay there. But they don't need him to come in and be a one back because they have Aaron Jones, who is one of the more underrated players in football. Speaking of underrated players in football, Kenny Clark is maybe the best defensive player that nobody talks about. They went out and got Christian Kirksey to help with the run defense. Maybe Oren Burke.
Their rush defense was so bad last year.
I know it's going to be tough. It is not going to, they got to stay healthy defensively, which they're already not off to a great start. I just saw, literally before we came on, they just lost their rookie linebacker for 6 to 8 weeks. So starts early, starts often with Green Bay. Same story, new year. But I am also buying into reports that I've seen from Packers reporters that Aaron Rodgers looks crisp as possible. If you guys want to talk about narratives, let's go with the Tom Brady-esque revival for Aaron Rodgers, who's clearly pissed off that the Packers drafted Jordan Love in the first round. Jordan Love, by the way, looks terrible according to a lot of reporters. So that's
Walter Football called him a worse version of Jameis Winston.
Yeah, it's gonna be classic Packers when he sucks and they wasted the first round pick at the end of Aaron Rodgers' prime to take to take a crappy quarterback.
You think AJ Dillon can spare some of those calves for Jordan Love?
No
some
kidding,
legs out there.
That guy is twigs.
Balance that out.
Yeah, but I think for this year, long term, I don't love the Packers, but I think this year, I still don't trust Kirk Cousins. Come on. Saw last year they had a chance to get back in that division or whatever at home, and the Packers came in and just stuffed them out on a Monday night. So I just don't trust any of those teams, so I'll just take the Packers, I
guess. Vikings and Packers are, the odds obviously say it that they're the two best teams in that division, most talented teams, but I'm anxious to see what comes of both the Bears and the Lions.
I agree.
In which, if either one of those teams sort of makes a run, I mean, you mentioned.
Well, you look at the Bears too. Nick Foles, maybe that makes a difference.
Maybe that's something. I mean, you can make the case they got the best pass rushing tandem in the NFL, bringing in Robert Quinn to go with Khalil Mack. So I don't know.
A lot of people like the Lions. A lot of people. I've seen a lot of buzz for the Lions as a trendy handicapping pick this year. Who knows? I don't know. Let's go to the South. Very interesting. NFC South. Andre, who do you like?
I'm gonna go with the Saints again because of that whole idea of new quarterbacks in a pandemic era / new coaches in the pandemic era. Carolina has a new coach. Carolina's rebuilding.
They're gonna suck.
Carolina's not going to be very good. Tampa Bay. You have this guy, Tom Brady. He's very good. But, again, I think it's going to be a slow start for them. I think they're a playoff team. I think they're going to be great. But it'll take a while for them. I'm going to take Saints because, they have all that, the continuity. And, they added Emmanuel Sanders. Drew Brees didn't really have a big number 2 last year. Now he does. And, again, they're just the most complete team in that division, I think. They were 7-1 in one-possession games last year, though, which scares me. That will revert to the mean, but I think that's an exception for the Saints. They're just the most complete team in the entire conference, I think. Atlanta's interesting, but they have a really tough schedule to start off the season. They have games against the Seahawks, Cowboys, Packers, and Vikings for the first 6 games, and they have to play the Saints twice and the Bucks twice. That's not going to be fun.
Who's that? The Falcons?
The Falcons.
I like how you like Tom Brady. That guy's pretty good. Yeah. This is where I think the quarterback coach thing gets put to the test because, if there is one quarterback to overcome that, it's almost certainly Tom Brady. So, Ricky, who do you like in the South?
I also like the Saints. The thing about the Saints is that not only do they have an incredibly high ceiling, they have a very high floor. What is the worst case scenario for the Saints with the talent that they have? You lose, say Drew Brees tears his ACL week 1. You plug in Jameis Winston, he goes down. You get Taysom Hill with some familiarity. Those guys, you can win with those quarterbacks. Obviously it's not ideal, but I don't know. I just think that even in their positions of strength, they have pretty enviable depth.
Have a high floor or a low floor?
A high floor. Oh. High ceiling, high floor. I can't see this team bottoming out. I think that no matter what, they're going to be competitive. Whereas the Bucs, you mentioned the adjustment period. I think you could point to the secondary and say there's some issues there. Worried a little bit about that offensive line. I know they tried to address that in the draft, but if you're going to ask Tom Brady to sit back there and throw the ball downfield, something he hasn't really done with great effectiveness over the past couple of years, I just think there are a lot of variables that could force things to go south in Tampa Bay a little bit. And then you mentioned that the Panthers are, I don't even really consider them part of this equation right now. Maybe some of their 7 draft picks they spent on defense all hit, and they make some noise next year or the year after. And then the Falcons, I actually like the Falcons, but I'm wondering if their little run last year kind of just delayed the inevitable with regards to Dan Quinn. I think they kind of need a little bit of a change here. I think the talent's in place, but I think maybe they need a coaching change. So, yeah, I like New Orleans.
Give me this. Give me the Bucks plus money. I'll take the Bucks. Buying in. Ricky, it's a good point about throwing downfield, but Brady hasn't been terrible throwing downfield if he gets time to throw. It just that wasn't really an option, especially the last couple of years in New England. This is the best complement of receivers he's had for a while. Especially compared to last year, they went out, they upgraded the offensive line. They got the kid Tristan Wirfs from I think Iowa. They're good up front. Sue's back.
Bench press, not bench press, box jump out of a swimming pool.
That's insane for a guy his size. So Sue, JPP, Shaq Barrett up front. I like Arians, at least again in the short term. I think maybe Brady gives them a new lease on life. And again, Evans is great. Godwin's good. The Gronk thing is interesting. Who knows what that's going to look like, but at least it's familiar for Brady. So I'll take the Bucks getting the plus money here. Again, you're giving me a chance, albeit on different teams, but I'll take Belichick and Brady at plus money to win their divisions. So.
This might be one of those ones that I wouldn't necessarily touch. I could see the value in taking the Bucks. I could even see the value in taking the Falcons if you're really in on them. When it comes to the Bucks, one thing that I am interested to see is if Brady and the obviously talented wide receivers don't get on the same page early, what comes of that? Because we've seen in the past Brady sort of blow up on guys, but that's in an organization that he's been around for 20 years, and I think that cachet, and I don't know, like if he comes in and he throws a few wounded ducks week one, he's not hitting these guys in stride. And is there a point where they look and they say, all right, this guy's lost a little zip on his fastball. What are we doing with this old man back there? Especially, maybe he gets into a situation where he's forcing things to Gronk. Like, there's just a lot of underlying storylines that I'm anxious to watch.
Yeah, one thing, Falcons 8-1, so that is interesting. Panthers 22-1. No thanks. All right, let's do the NFC West here. 49ers, about even money to as favorites. Seahawks about 2-1, 5-1, 6-1 for the Rams, and Cardinals bring up the rear 7-1. Ricky, who do you like in the NFC West?
I'm gonna take the Niners. I do think they're might be susceptible to a little bit of a hangover here. The Super Bowl loss hangover. Maybe this year's version of what the Rams were last year, when sort of everybody's all over them and then they come out and lay an egg. But I do think there is just obviously a ton of talent assembled there. So I will take the Niners to win it. I wouldn't. Again, I don't think this is a division that I would touch from a betting standpoint, unless if I'm looking for value, I might even look at the Rams. I think everybody's sort of burying them a little bit after last year, understandably so. But I think Sean McVay makes some adjustments to that offense, and I think they'll be better this year. But I'll take the Niners to win it. But if I'm looking for value, I like the Rams actually.
All right, a couple years ago, I remember I got a lot of criticism from Ricky for linking out to the Tampa Bay Bucks depth chart to give my reasoning for the Bucks to win the NFC South that year, which they didn't. But I think everybody's overlooking the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm going with the Cardinals to win the division. Let me tell you why. Last 6 NFC champions have had an average of 3.5 fewer wins the following season. 49ers, with an inconsistency at quarterback, they can easily fall in that trap. Meanwhile, Seattle has done nothing to address their offensive line situation. Russell Wilson's still not going to get any protection. He's going to have to carry that team to victory every single time. Meanwhile, Arizona, somehow they've pulled together this unbelievable roster. Yeah, Kyler Murray, he's a year.
Unbelievable roster.
DeAndre Hopkins, he has DeAndre Hopkins.
Let's pump the brakes.
Kenyon Drake came out of nowhere. He's a fantastic run. Let me talk. And they drafted a guy named Isaiah Simmons. He's going to be great because they stunk against tight ends last year. He's going to be a nice plug in that defense to slow down other teams' tight ends. And people forget, they stopped Patrick Peterson as a corner. Chandler Jones, one of the best pass rushers in the league. You have some great pieces on defense. And, I'm buying into Cliff Kingsbury. He had a nice house in the desert of Phoenix that was displayed very prominently during the NFL draft. I'm buying into him. I like the Arizona Cardinals. You're talking about value. And also, guys, we've just been taking chalk all show. Something crazy has to happen in the NFL. That's the crazy thing. Arizona's going to be really good this year.
I think they'll be better. I don't think
Also, my
1 year away.
Laptop battery's dying, so I'm going to go plug in. Give me a second. Mike, go ahead with your pick. I'm
Okay. It's Jesus. Yeah, it feels like something that maybe he probably should have done from the beginning, but that's neither. I guess I'll take San Francisco. I don't love it because I think there's some injuries already. If any team was going to suffer a Super Bowl hangover, it would be them too. Like, you look at, it's kind of what Atlanta went through, right? Like,
and the Rams.
Yeah, right.
Good.
Not quite as bad, but the fact that, you had it there and you couldn't finish it. I think the difference between, I don't want to downplay how good, or maybe he's not. Maybe McVay's not good, but I just think Shanahan's a better coach than Quinn or McVay in terms of bouncing back after those Super Bowl things. I think, we talk about the head coach continuity, and Garoppolo is not great, but I don't think it matters because I think Shanahan is that good. I really think he is probably the best coach in the NFL at this point, not named Bill Belichick, and I think he is adaptable. So I think if he's thrown any curveballs, which he already has been with some injuries and things like that, I think he'll find a way to kind of make it work. So I just think that they're stable. Again, I agree with Andre. We've done a terrible job of going out on limbs here, but I see what I see, and I think I'm just going to stick with the again, like I said, the stability of the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan. So,
what that stable of coaches in the NFC West? Imagine rolling into a party with, you have Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, and Pete Carroll comes rolling in. Like, I feel like Pete Carroll is be the old guy that
he is
trying to be hip with the rest of the young guys.
That's a good point. He looks better than most of them too. He's like 85 years old at this point. He's so old. I think he's the oldest coach in the league. Like, he's up there.
Yeah, Belichick too, right?
Yeah.
With the Rams, I don't know. I don't like them this year at all. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams this year. Wade Phillips is gone.
Good point. Wild cards here. Round out the playoff field. Who do you guys like? Ricky, why don't you start?
All right, so I will take, speaking of the Rams, I'll pick them as a wild card.
Wow.
I will take them. I'll take the Bucks. I do think, for all their issues, I still could see them winning, maybe going 10-6, getting in there. Then I'll take the Bears. I think there's going to be a second team to come out of that NFC North. I think the Packers are the easy pick, if I'm taking the Vikings to win the division, but I think defensively that the Bears have what it takes, and if they do turn it over to Nick Foles, I think I don't know. I think something weird could happen there, and there's enough offensive talent around him to be able to put up some points. So.
I'm laughing at you. Those are some bold picks, Bears and Rams. That's crap.
The guy who just picked the Cardinals to win the division.
My wild
an unbelievable roster, mind you.
Yeah.
All right.
Kenyon Drake, MVP frontrunner.
I never said that. Wild cards. I like the Tampa Bay Bucks. As we talked about, they had the Saints winning the South. I like the Dallas Cowboys a lot. You completely ignored that. You never even said the words Philadelphia Eagles once today, Ricky. How do you do that? Anyway, I got the Cowboys as a wild card team, and the Seahawks. I mean, Russell Wilson's.
I think the Seahawks might be bad this year. That's my hot take.
I just think, I know they'll be bad, but Russell Wilson will elevate that team from garbage that they are and make them into a playoff team because he's that good. I think he's the most valuable quarterback to his team.
So do you have the 49ers missing the playoffs?
I have the 49ers missing the playoffs. How shocking is that? An NFC...
No, it's not. I was just
and the next they don't make the playoffs. It happens all the time.
Yeah, I was just clarifying.
Yeah.
So I get the Saints because I have the Bucks winning the South. I will the Eagles as well. I do think the Eagles did a good job of kind of addressing their needs, especially with the receivers. And then the last one's kind of a toss-up, but I guess I'm looking at the Bears. I think the defense is still okay. I think their only hope is that Foles is good and he takes over and he's by far their one and is good. But I think the NFC is kind of wide open. So at least
Bears have a little bit of that, similar to the Browns, a little bit of post-hype sleeper to them.
Yeah. So let's do Super Bowl picks. Andre, who's your Super Bowl pick?
Again, I'm gonna go with. I know I had the Cardinals as my NFC West champion. No, I'm not going them to win the Super Bowl. But most of the time, we all pick chalk in this nice conversation that we're having that they call a podcast. And then I'm going to go with that for the Super Bowl because I just think, in this weird environment that we're in, it just makes most sense to do that. I'm going with the Saints over the Chiefs to win. Drew Brees wins his second Super Bowl, retires, and rise into the sunset.
I was leaning towards Saints over Chiefs as well, so now I'm going to change it on the fly. And I'm going to take the Cowboys over the Chiefs.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I think the Cowboys and the Saints are the two most talented teams, and if we're going to eliminate one by virtue of your pick, I guess I'll just take the other one.
Okay. All right, and now Mike.
I got Chiefs over Saints. So, a lot of chalk.
A little bit of a round robin thing we got going on here.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
Throwing the Cowboys as the third man in.
Yeah, I don't have much else to offer. I just think they're loaded. They have the best player in the league in his prime, a great coach who has now proved that he can win a Super Bowl. So I don't think there's going to be any hangover either. So I like them. So thanks for joining us. Be sure to subscribe, do all that, and we'll see you every week to make our NFL picks. It'll be fun. See ya. Bye.